Yes, yes, yes. Uh, Welcome to Come Well into another episode, another doorway, another portal entitled "Am I as I am, as you are?" Today's episode, we're going to be touching upon what is the principle of separation. What is separation? What happens when separation occurs, whether voluntarily or involuntarily? What's going on when this separation occurs? What's happening? Of course, we're going to go into it. Of course, you know the format as we go line for line, doorway after doorway, and together we walk down this hallway. Okay? Okay, so the first line and or doorway is letting go to go towards. Letting go to go towards. Once again, remember this reality is a paradoxical reality. At the same time, one thing is happening, the reverse of that one thing happening is also happening. So as you let go from something, from somebody, from someplace, it actually means on the other spectrum of understanding, when you're letting go, you're being pulled to something. The very act of stepping back and letting go, or detaching, separating, it means, whether you know it or not, that you're being pulled into something else. Stepping back, you doing it voluntarily, also means that something is pulling you back unconsciously, whether you know it or not. Which is why when you separate from something, you find yourself in a different situation. So at the same time, something is pushing. When you separate, you can say it's a form of pushing away from something. At the same time, push is happening, pull is happening. But what is the pull? Where is the pull happening? And what is it pulling you into? So you push away consciously, and unconsciously and or subconsciously, something is pulling you towards it. You push away from something and something is pulling you towards it. Okay, so letting go to go towards. To go towards what? That what is the mystery of what is pulling you towards it, unconsciously and subconsciously, while you push away or separate from something consciously. At the same time, something is pulling you towards it unconsciously and subconsciously. Okay, so that's what that means. Go to the next line, next doorway. The next line in doorway is let go internally first, then externally second. Let go internally first, externally second. All process of attachment actually happens internally, whether it's the mind or the biology, emotions, feelings. This is all an internal thing. So if you want to fully separate or let go of something, you have to first separate and let go of it internally through the mind, through the heart, through the feeling, through the biology, through the emotion. So when that happens, letting go of something externally is a piece of cake. Doesn't mean nothing. But if you do the external work, the outside work, without doing the internal work, the inside work, it's going to be just that much more difficult again to let go of something when you attach yourself to something, because you haven't did the internal work. Everything is about the inner or the innate, the inside, the internal. This is where you do your first homework. Second homework is external. So don't just let go of something physically. Let go of it spiritually. Let go of it emotionally. Let go of it energetically. And when that happens, the physical part automatically lets go and separates. It becomes a piece of cake. Okay? We'll get back to that probably throughout this video. Certain ways we'll touch upon in different ways. The next line in doorway is separation means something is pushing you and pulling you towards itself at the same time, which is what we just touched upon. Separation means something is pushing you and pulling you towards itself at the same time. But what is this itself? What is this self that is an it? That's pulling you towards it. What is it? Well, that's for you to decode and decipher upon your own time. And you have to figure that out eventually, ultimately. But if you don't figure it out, it's okay because it will reveal itself to you and you will know. You will find yourself in some other predicament or some other situation. That's inevitable. But just know at the same time you're pushing from something, it also means something is pulling you towards it. Which is why people separate from certain situations that's not so great for them and then find themselves on the spiritual path or just find themselves being silent and still. And on some other path and they receive a calling, something happens and their life changes and they transform. Because that is the itself, which is pulling you to itself. That is the self, that is the it, the what. It's just a question mark. It's just a space. It's a nothingness. It's a void. It's an emptiness that's pulling you towards it. Because you have a mission to fulfill. You have a path to walk. You have a calling to answer. But what is it? You'll find out when the time is right. You'll find out when the moment is right. Let me rephrase that. Reword that. Okay. The next line in doorway is you experience the love principle. The body experiences emotional loving. So you, the life force or the force of life, experiences the love principle or the principle of the LOVE. You experience the principle of it. The body experiences the emotional loving. Because this is a vehicle which is full of nothing but feelings, moods, and emotions. That's what this whole thing's about. But you experience the principle of LOVE. This experiences the emotional field and feeling of LOVE. So learn to part yourself. Learn to be the one witnessing the experience and also be the one feeling and being the experience. Or being the experience and doing the experience. Witnessing the experience and living in the experience. Learn to separate that gap and that space between this and that. Therefore, you won't become so glued and so personal with this vehicle, with this body, with this skin suit, with this flesh costume. You won't be so tied and glued to this thing. Once you begin to part from the thing, little by little. So learn to be the one witnessing the experience and to also be the one living the experience. This takes practice, method, technique. But you first have to understand, you first have to know that you are not this. You have to know that. And to know that, you got to have gnosis. You got to have knowledge. Knowledge helps out in situations like this. Knowledge of what you are, where you're at, and how this shit functions, and how this thing operates, and what's really going on besides what you thought was going on. Okay. So learn to create that space and that gap, or to be that void. Be the void. Learn to be the void. Well, first you have to know that a void is present. First you have to know that a void is there. So this is, once again, pertaining to separation. Learn to separate. That is one of your superpowers, or what you may want to call supernatural. I don't know. But this is just one of your powers. This is one of your capabilities, put it like that. This is one of your naturally divine capabilities to separate from things at will when chosen to do so. Whenever you want it to happen, it will happen. But you have to be true to it. You have to be about it. And don't doubt it. Okay, so that's the separation. This, that. Witness, live. Being, doing. This is the separation. The separation always been there. So you don't really have to separate. You just have to witness that separation exists. Once you witness separation and realize that separation exists, the principle of separation exists, you just jump into that pool, that void, that space, that emptiness, jump into it, and all of a sudden separation occurs. So you don't really have to separate. Just understand and know that separation, a principle of separation exists. And jump into that. Dive into that. Get into that slot. Move yourself into that groove of separation. And all of a sudden space and gap occurs. So there's a way to do it voluntarily, and there's a way to do it and make it happen involuntarily. There's a way to do it voluntarily, and there's a way to make it happen involuntarily. Just by you realizing or recognizing and then realizing that it actually does exist through the scope of your awareness of all things that happen, all things that occur and unfold in front of you, and why things happen this way. Like right now, I'm talking to this camera, and those of you looking at it, we are so-called separated in a certain way of understanding, even though we're connected. And in metaphysics and occult wisdom, there's no such thing as separation from one thing to another. But let's just say it is at the moment. You're looking at me, and I'm looking at a camera. So we can say you're over there, you can say you're over there, and I can say I'm over here. So this is a form of understanding of separation when it comes to the understanding of individuality, and one individual's experience being different from another individual's experience. So what is this principle talking to me? What is the silent intelligence speaking to me and through me in this moment? What is this about? It's here. You recognize that it's here, and you realize it's happening. You realize it is. So now I need to learn about what this thing that is. What is this principle which exists? Why does it exist? And can I utilize this principle in my moment-to-moment, day-to-day living experience in case I need to or want to separate from someone or something at any time? Can I take this principle and utilize it in this situation? Can I take this principle and utilize it in this situation? But first I have to understand the silent speaking of this principle speaking to me and through me before I can grab it and utilize it in my moment-to-moment, day-to-day living situations. Space separation is silent. It's quiet. It just is. It's just here. What is it? In order to understand what it is, you have to mimic it. You have to mirror it. You have to be it. So be silent and be still. And when you are silent and still, you're mimicking or mirroring that which is the way it is, then you will receive what it is. And then you can utilize how it is with your own personal situations. Space gap separation. Okay? Move to the next line of doorway. The next line in doorway is, you have never loved another because it's impossible to do so. Now remember, when I'm touching upon principles on this video cast, 1 + 1 = 1, as I am as you are, on this video cast, I'm always almost 90-something% of the time pertaining to people in relationships. Or this is relationship based or companionship. People may find a challenge separating from someone or something in their life. And this is what this video cast is supposed to be utilized for. For one who is extremely jealous, obsessive, possessive, very attaching, very emotional, always drowning in feeling, always drowning in thought, sinking deeper and deeper into this human shell, into this third dimensional, low vibrational experience, and not knowing their high vibrational existence. Okay, so that's what I'm always pertaining to. So go back to the line. You've never ever loved another because it's impossible to do so. The body, this can, so-called, if you want to say, love another. But what you truly are, the life force, which is the one witnessing this body loving another, you're witnessing it internally. Remember, I said let go internally before externally. What that means is always resort back to the internal, no matter how much the external was involved in, no matter what the external was doing. Remain here in the mind. Remain in the mind. Remain in the nothing, no matter how much the something is involved in. And the something being the body, or the something being the physical dimension, and the nothing being the unphysical existence. The something being the physical experience, and the nothing being the unphysical existence. You can't just play in the physical experience. You can play there, but make sure that you are sitting in the unphysical existence, which is what you truly are. Play in the physical experience all you want, but play in the physical experience, project that physical experience from a lens of the unphysical existence, which is what you truly are. You can play all day. Play. Just play. But you're always here. You're never here. You're using this body as a puppet. This is your avatar. This is your Monopoly piece. This is your chess piece. This is your checker piece. This is your toy. This is your action figure. This is not you. Learn to separate from this thing, from this physical vehicle, from this third density. Learn to separate. So you, the life force, or the existence, the unphysical existence, has never loved another. Because number one, that aspect is everything. So there is no another. There is no such thing as someone else, or somebody else, or them, or they. Remember, there's no separation in metaphysics or occult wisdom. There's no separation between me and you. There's no separation. That's the illusion. The space is the illusion. All this is an illusion. So the I has never loved another. The you may have loved another. If you want to say that love exists. But love is not something which you address. It's not something which is out. It's something which is in. Okay? So let this body love. Let this body do what it wants to do. Let this body do bodily things. It came here to do bodily things. That's what this body came here to do. That's what this body appeared to do. You just witness what the body that you projected is doing. So that you never get too caught or anchored in the physical third density experience. Learn to just witness what's going on. Just watch. So learn to be the looker and learn to be the one doing the movement at the same time. Create that space and that gap. Recognize that separation is there. Okay? The next line in doorway is separation occurs means that something that you are is ready to know itself. When separation occurs, it means that something that you are, which is the nothing, is ready to know of itself. And is ready to know itself. Once again, what does that mean? Well, separating from things means that you're separating. When separation occurs, once again, like I said, it's residing back or resorting back to something which it truly is. When it starts to let go of physical things, that means the unphysical is actually becoming more potent. When you let go of physical things, the unphysical is actually beginning to manifest. As soon as you begin to let go of physical things, the unphysical thing starts to unravel more and more. Which is why when you get into an argument, you may have, with your mate, your husband, your wife, and you walk away. I'm not talking about this no more. We're not talking about this no more. I'm tired of this shit. I'm going over here. You go over there, and I'll talk to you again when I'm straight. What happens is you move away, she moves away, and y'all both become silent. Especially silent from each other. You may go into your silent spaces, your silent room, your silent, place inside the house. And your mind becomes, I can't say silent, but you kind of, in a way, some kind of silence occurs and stillness happens. And when that happens, the unphysical is knocking on your door. And it's about to creep in. It's about to creep right in. So, you think that you're actually doing the separation, but the separation is actually occurring because it is. And that's how it is here. And when that happens, something else is speaking to you. Something else, once again, as you push away, something is pulling you towards it. This is principle. This is paradox. It's kind of reciprocal. Well, at the same time, something happens, the opposite occurrence is also happening. It's also occurring. Like I always give the example, when you're walking down the street or when you're walking, your right leg comes out, but your left arm swings and meets it. Your left leg comes out, but your right arm swings and meets it. So we know that at the same time right comes out, left comes out. At the same time left comes out, right comes out, and it meets. So at the same time you're pushing something away, you're being separated from something, something else is pulling you towards it. Well, what is it? That's for you to find out. And the best way for you to find out is to not be of your brain. Be of your mind. And then Be of your spirit, because behind the mind is the spirit. Behind the spirit is the soul. So learn how to kind of put a, let's say, calmness, or learn not to put your attention so much on these things. As you don't put so much attention on the brain, mind appears. You don't put so much attention on the mind, the spirit becomes more clearer to you. You don't put so much attention on the spirit, the soul unravels before you. So learn not to put so much attention and focus and concentration on these things, because there's something else prior to that thing which is more potent and more deeper inside of you. And when you make contact with that deep aspect inside of you, that deep aspect begins to talk to you by talking or communicating through you. Be still and be silent for it to happen. Just like space, just like separation. When that separation occurs, a silent space, gap, and void. Be that by first recognizing it and realizing that it does exist. As soon as you recognize it and realize it, you automatically become possessed by it, and then you become it, and then you now know how it is or what it is, because you are being it. That's how it happens. You don't have to jump into anything. All you gotta do is recognize it and realize it. All of a sudden, you're possessed by it and you become it. And as you become it, take in the experience silently in your mind. Take data, understand what's going on. Be conscious of this thing that's happening. And then when you snap back out of it, you took all that information with you, and now you know how to apply it in your moment to moment, day to day human interaction, human activity, human situations. So that's how you take information from something which is principled. Be silent and still to it and for it, as it, with it. And a whole bunch of information is happening because you're experiencing it. You're not trying to understand it at first. You're just experiencing it. As you experience it, as you experience it, the brain is taking an understanding of it. And then you snap back out of it, and then you're able to utilize it in whatever you choose to utilize it in, for whatever reason you want to. Right? The next line, and/or doorway, is separation means it's the self communicating to itself. The self communicating to itself. Once again, no matter how much you get anchored in this physical reality, you're always here. No matter how much you play here, you're always here. You're projecting an avatar called James. You're projecting an avatar called Mary. This is James. This is Mary. This is Brian. You know, these are these people over here. But you're over here. And you're projecting an avatar. So always remain here. No matter how anchored this third density vehicle becomes in this physical dimension, this physical experience. Yeah, physical dimension as well, because dimension is depth, length, and width. So this is a certain type of thing of that nature. So always be here, not here. If you're too much here, then you forget that you're actually this, and you get stuck here, and you're anchored here. But this always is, no matter how much you anchored it. So when something happens, and you get to a breakup, it goes back to this. Project again as a character. You get into an argument, disagreement, something happens, you're going to separate, it comes back to this. Project again out here. You're doing something, something happens, an activity, situation, circumstances unfold that's not to your benefit. You separate from it, you go back in stillness and silence, and you become this again. So this is never going to go anywhere, no matter how much you get caught up in this character, or this personality, or this identity, or this human body, this physical experience. It doesn't matter how much you get caught in here, this always remains. Because this wouldn't be here without this projecting this here. See, so when you separate, it's It's something calling itself or communicating to itself. It's saying, come back. No matter how much you hear, come back. No matter how much you hear, come back. No matter how much you up here, you think this is real, come back. So when you separate from something, you're going back into silence and stillness. And you're being of the mind, being quiet. You become in a space of nothingness, in this orbiting void, which is the true nothingness, true emptiness is what truly are. And from that point, you come back out again. From that experience, you have an understanding, you come back out again. So you're always going to resort back to this to get insight, intuition, and then you come back out to deal with the logic and reason back in the physical reality. But you always have to come back here. You're always going to, not you have to, you have no choice. You're always going to resort right back to point A, to the primary point of your existence. No matter how much you get dive deep into your experience, it doesn't mean shit. So when separation occurs, that means there's something, the self communicating to itself, bringing itself back to itself. Okay? Next line of doorway is separation, to feel and detect the bondage or bonding of glue. So another way of looking at separation means that separation is not only to separate from him, her, or them, or that. That's what you think is going on. But what's happening is it's spirit or something telling you to feel and detect the bondage or bonding of glue or a glue that you have created. Feel that glue. Feel that stretch. Feel that pull. Understand that stretch and that pull. So it may not be, oh, I gotta get away from her because I can't deal with it. I don't like him. I have to get away from that, and that's why I had to separate because he was doing this, or she was doing that, or that was doing that, and I can't be over there because I have to. That's your own personal human reasons why you did the separation, or you had to separate from something. But spiritually, it's saying, yeah, okay, yeah, you separated from that because of that reason. You separated from her or him because of that. Okay, cool, no problem. I'll let you think that. It's the spirit saying that. Just to give spirit a personality at the moment, or sense of humor. Just explain to you so that you understand. And saying, okay, no problem. Yeah, she did that. Yeah, get away from her. Yeah, he did that. Yeah, you don't like that over there. Yeah, cool. Yeah, get away from that. Away from that. That's your reason why you did it in the human aspect, of a human reality. Cool, no problem. But little do you know, I'm doing this so that you can feel what glue feels like. I'm doing this so that you think, so that you have an understanding of what bondage or bonding yourself to something feels like. Identify that feeling, feel that, detect that, so that when something else happens similar to the same situation, you now have a deeper understanding of it. You think it's because of him, her, that, or them. But Spirit is saying it's because I want you to understand what glue feels like. I want you to understand what bonding and bond and bondage feels like, or binding yourself to something or someone. Feel that, detect that, know that, understand that. And then apply that understanding in your moment-to-moment, day-to-day activity situations and interactions. Experience, then understand. It's basically what it's saying. Yeah. The next line in doorway is to know that glue is present. This is another reason why we separate from things. Spirit is saying, know that glue is present. Know that glue is present. Because that separation from that relationship or that marriage or that, companion or whatever it may be, that tearing that you feel is to understand that glue was present, because why would tearing even occur? You have created a glue that you don't know that you created, or wasn't aware that you're creating a glue. So feel the glue, experience the tear, feel the tear, feel the glue. This is what you have created. Understand that glue is always present. This is what Spirit is saying. Okay? To know glue is present. That's why another reason dealing with principle is spirituality, while we separate from things. Once again, we may think it's because of him and her and our own personal human reasons, but there's something behind that curtain which is actually happening unbeknownst to you. You see, it's because of him, it's because of her, it's because of that? No. It's just Spirit saying, know that glue is present. Whenever you give time, experience, and interaction with someone or something, time, experience, and interaction, and focus and attention, glue is getting more gooier, it's getting more thicker. As these things happen, these principles occur. That's becoming more thicker. The more thicker it becomes, the more harder it's going to become to tear away from it when you feel you need to or want to or desire to. Okay? Next line and or doorway is separation. The divine return in order to receive. The divine return in order to receive. This is what separation is. Once again, like I said before, when you separate from something, you're returning back to something, back to the primary point, the projection or the projector. This is the projection, and this is the projector. The projector projects the projection. Okay? So when something happens here, separation, any way that happens, it's the divine return. It's the divine return in order to receive. Which is why when you get back to that silent and that stillness, that silence and that stillness, you begin to receive something, an understanding, intuition. Something happens in your mind. Something happens with you before you return back out into the field of human reality, or human activity. Something happens in your mind. You begin maybe to perceive something differently. You begin to become wise to the situations which begin to unfold before you. When you shoot back out into the human experience from your spiritual existence, from your nothingness, from your emptiness, from your zero, from your void. Okay? So it's a divine return in order to receive. So every time you return back to here, you're going to receive something. And that may be your calling or your path that you begin. Okay? It's like a retreat. To retreat. In other words, it's a retreat. You get back. Every time you separate, once again, like I said, you think you're pushing away from somebody or someone. As you push away from somebody or someone, you're getting pulled back. Push away from somebody or someone, you're getting pulled back. Push away from this person, you're getting pulled back. So even my martial arts is like this, going like this. And you're pulling, as you go out, this is getting pulled back. This is getting pulled back. See, so no matter how you look at it, it's always something releasing out and getting pulled in. Releasing out, pulled in. So that's the whole point of the power. The power comes from the pulling and the root or the grounding. But that's also a separation. It's a separation. It's a separation. Okay? So understand that principle. Okay. The next line and or doorway is separation is a derivative of release. Separation is a derivative of release. It derives from a releasing occurring. So before you think you're separating, actually what's happening is a certain kind of release is happening. As a release is happening, separation occurs. Which is why even before you break up with your mate, there's a releasing happening. You say, I can't be with this person. Oh, it's not working out. I can't deal with them. It's just not working out. It's not clicking for some reason. You're not getting along. You're not being eye to eye. There's something going on. You're just not there. That whole release which is happening according to your human logic and reason and decision, which you think is really going on, a principle of release is happening. And the effect of that cause of release, the effect of release is the separation. So something is already happening before you think you're making something happen, in other words. Okay? That's what that means. Separation from the body, separation from relationship, separation from a habit that you need to stop. Something is happening, which is why even in life, as you're living, you're also dying. So you may call this life, pardon me. Somebody else sees it as death. So I'm living life. Or I'm life, I'm living. Somebody can look at it and say, no, you're dying. At the same time you're living, you're dying. This is death. This is the dying stage. As soon as you come out the womb, you begin to die. See, so, and you resort back to that. You retrieve and receive. Back to the retreat which you came from, the womb, which is why bodies are found in the tomb. The tomb is the same word as womb. It's the same kind of understanding as womb, which is why dead bodies are dug inside of a tomb, because the tomb is the womb. So you retrieve and receive back, you retrieve and retreat back to that to receive that same thing happening again called life, somewhere else, out of another womb crying, whatever you are, wherever you may be, pop up at. So separation is a derivative of release. So at first, whether you know it or not, a release is happening, and that happening gives birth to an occurrence called separation. It's already brewing. It's already happening before you know it, and it's inevitable to happen eventually. Okay. The next line and or doorway is: no need to love, hate, like, or dislike dealing with your mate. Just interact, interface, and communicate. No need to willingly emote. To thoughtlessly and purely emote is involuntary. Just like breathing, heart beating, and mind. Become the involuntary being. Become the involuntary being. So it's not necessary. It's not necessary that you need to love or hate or like or dislike someone or something. Just interact, interface, and communicate with it. Remember, you're here to experience this experience fully by understanding the existence of principle and principality. So don't try to like or love or hate or dislike somebody. Just do it for the pure joy and pure experience of interaction, interfacing, and communication. Stop getting so damn personal. You don't need to try to love your mother. You already do. There's certain things that are just in place, that you don't need to do this or need to do that. Certain things that people do will navigate you and guide you in certain directions on its own, naturally. You don't need to make a right or need to make a left. Things will naturally guide you to these directions and these paths. So there's no need to put your attention and focus on certain things all the time. Most of the time. There's no need. Every cause has an effect. Every cause has an effect. Learn how to drift and shift, shift and drift. But just drift. You can use choice and decision when you want to, but just learn how to drift and shift gears. Okay? Which is switching the speed and the pace of certain things. You don't necessarily have to navigate yourself in this direction and that direction willingly all the time. It will go that way on its own. You will move in that direction on your own, whether you know it or not. Things you kind of find yourself in places and spaces where you need to be at the perfect time sometimes, most of the time. Actually, in actuality, all of the time, because in metaphysics and occult wisdom, there's no such thing as a mistake or coincidence. That doesn't exist. Everything is perfectly aligned. Everything is perfectly in sync and in tune with itself, whether you know it or not. Okay? Next line in our doorway is, you have a different task from your body at the point of transition. You have a different task from your body at the point of transition. The you, which is the I, the life force, the force of life, the void, the nothing, the zero, the emptiness, the spirit. You, spirit, have a different task from your human body. Your human body has its own task. You have a whole totally different task. You just witness what the body's going through. Stop jumping in the body and getting stuck in the body and the body's play. Learn to be here, just witness it, just watch it, just look at it. Learn to be the witnesser and learn to be the one moving in the experience. Learn to be the existence and the experience at the same time. That way, no matter what separation occurs, it doesn't do any harm to you, it doesn't bother you. It doesn't throw you off in any way because you never was that physical body to begin with. So the body has its own playtime. Let it do what it wants to do. But you, the I, have a whole different, totally different task from what the body's going through. Just witness what it's going through. The body came here to bleed. It came here to sweat. It came here to piss. It came here to eat. It came here to walk. It came here to grab. It came here to touch. It came here to feel. It came here to emote, to witness emotion. It came here to witness moods. It came here to taste, to smell, to hear, to look, to watch, for eyeballs. It came here for all that. But you, the I, that projects the physical vehicle, this part has a whole different task from this part. So let this do what it wants to do. You just remain here. Okay? Okay, let's go to the next one. The next line in our doorway is, so I want to say this too. The more you learn to separate voluntarily and willingly by your own choice and decision, the more easier it becomes to separate from this body at the point where you transition from this body and it's you and this body part. So the more you practice the separation technique and have methods for this technique and apply it in your moment-to-moment, day-to-day human living experience, the day or the moment when it comes to meet your point of existence again, it's easy to separate from this because you've been practicing separation your whole human experience. So when the point of death or release happens, you separate from this with no problem. So learn to practice this separation technique, or learn to create techniques of separation and master this method of madness. Master your method of madness. Master this method that you create. Okay? Like right now I have hair, but hair is constantly falling off every day. Skin is constantly shedding. Every moment, every day. So this is separating. The spirit is always constantly separating from this vehicle. This vehicle is constantly separating from the spirit. What's your problem? Notice that all this is happening right now. What is separation? Learn it, apply it. Okay. The next line in our doorway is, don't separate by choice or decision. Let things naturally shift and drift on its own volition. Like I said before, I won't say don't separate. I wouldn't recommend all the time or suggest all the time that you separate by your own choice and decision. Let things naturally shift and drift on its own volition. Of course, shifting means speed, pace, whatever pace you want to go at, what you're doing. And of course, drift just means that you're not really navigating yourself, intentionally navigating yourself, willingly navigating yourself to these different paths and different directions. You just find yourself drifting into these slots throughout your experience with people and places and things. Okay, learn to drift into people, places, and things, and just control your shift every once in a while. Okay. And the last line and or doorway is, what's more difficult or challenging? Separating from the body or separating from a relationship? What is more difficult or more challenging? Separating from the body or separating from a relationship? I'll put it to you like this. Situations in your life which become very emotionally and mentally attached to people and things, the more you learn or acknowledge that a release is there, it always is there, the more it's easy to separate from that. And the more you separate from that within your human living experience, the more easier it will become to separate from this body and return back to your point of existence. Am I as I am, as you are. I'll see you guys next time. Until then, keep you in vision. 1, 0.